Good morning. I'm Tony Marshall. I flew for the U.S. Air Force for 21 years, flying the F-4. When I retired, I flew for United, and I flew the DC-10, the 747, and the A320. And I retired in 2006. In the Air Force, you do things bang, bang. You see a problem, you take care of it. In the commercial side, you slow down, you consult with your partners, and do that before you take any action. When I was a kid, I always watched flying movies and I always thought pilots were cool. I lived near Andrews Air Force Base, so I got to see a lot of military planes. And one day when I was a kid, a young pilot in a Piper Cub circled overhead as we were waving at him, flew down and waved at us, and that hooked me. When I was dreaming of being a pilot, I had the same dream of being Superman. I figured I had about the same chance of being both. My guidance counselor in high school, who told me not to be a big fish in a small pond, but to be a little fish in a big pond. And she encouraged me to go to the Air Force Academy instead of staying local and going to the local colleges. And that changed my life. Being in the Air Force, initially I started out as a navigator, electronic warfare officer, because my eyesight was not very good. But they eventually changed that and gave us a waiver, so I was able to advance to the pilot career field. But it just takes focus, saying, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a pilot. And just trying to study hard and acing all of your exams. No overt barriers, just the covert, that there weren't very many of us being black pilots. The racial thing was not that prevalent. It was more subtle. There are cultural barriers, racial barriers, and most of it is our kids are not prepared. They don't know what's available to them. So my case, I just persevered and ignored the subtle things and just continued to go after my goal. My advice would be overall is to accept being a pilot as a mental state. It has nothing to do with flying airplanes, but it's taking advantage of every opportunity you get, being the best at whatever you're doing, overcoming obstacles. But the biggest problem is our kids don't take advantage of opportunities. They regret the choices they didn't make. So my advice is, again, be a pilot, take charge of your life, and always go for the goal. Go for the top rung of the ladder. Don't settle for the middle rung. My advice from my mother was control the things that you can control and don't worry about the things you cannot control. So I like being in charge. I like being the one that's making the decisions, and that fits the pattern of being a pilot mentality. And if you stumble, don't worry about it. Pick yourself up and move on. As everyone says, it's a well-worn cliche, you can be anything you want to be. It's just the question of whether or not you really want to do it. It's life choices. Again, being a pilot, taking charge of your life and making those decisions that make good, and then taking responsibility for your actions. When I got hired at United, I had a big head. I felt great. I made it. And I ran into Bill Norwood, who was one of our founders at OBAP. And Bill pulled me aside and said, put your head back inside your hat. You've made it, but you now have a new mission. So whenever you're walking through the terminal with your crew, if you ever see a little kid, particularly a minority kid, leave your partners, go talk to that kid. Your mission now is to recruit young people of color into the aviation airfield. And I took that to heart.